for inviting me to this incredible country and this wonderful university. As most of you know, or some of you know, I was literally plucked from my father's tea plantation in 1947, 1 year before independence, and sent to school in England to, quotes, get a decent education. I never saw my father again. I didn't see my mother for nearly 5 years. And when I met her, it was in the housemaster's study. And he said that I would have to leave school because we simply didn't have the money to pay for the education fees. I spent my 17th birthday in the City of London, working there, learning finance. But after 5 years, there really wasn't much opportunity for me in England, so I went to Canada. There, I hacked my way through the financial jungle until 43 years after I left Ceylon, now Sri Lanka. I went back to the island for a visit to try to pick up the pieces and to confront the ghost of my father. This book, The Man-Eater of Punani, was the book that I wrote about that visit. It was originally published by HarperCollins in Canada in 1993, and curiously, it sold over 7,000 copies. Then it has now been republished 3 other times in England and in the United States. And strangely and surprisingly, it has now sold over 100,000 copies. Then, to my surprise, History Channel in Canada commissioned John McGreevy, the Canadian film director, to do a film of this book. And it was shown 4 times in Canada and once by Discovery Channel in the United States. This is the film of this book. They gave it the title of Visions of an Island. I hope you like it. It's about 45 minutes, so don't go to sleep. And I'll chat to you about it later and I'll answer any questions you have. Hope you like it.
Serendipity is the accident of looking for one thing and finding another. It comes from Serendip, the old name for Ceylon in Sri Lanka, itself a serendipitous discovery. This ruined city of Yapahua held the seat of power for a brief and glorious period in the late 13th century. From the very beginning, this island has had a history of conflict. In 500 BC, Prince Vijaya was banished by his father in India and came to Sri Lanka, founding the Sri Lankan race. Many other nations have wanted to capture and control this pearl in the Indian Ocean. But Sri Lanka has survived and will survive. Let me tell you why, as I take you on a journey to my visions of an island. When I was a boy in Ceylon, as Sri Lanka was known until 1972, my father took me on a trip around the island. It was probably the highlight of my life until then. It was also the last thing we did alone together. The year was 1946. I was 12. Our lives were about to change dramatically, and we would be separated forever. For me, the change meant school in England a financial career in London, and the makings of success in Canada. But for him, it meant disgrace, drink, and death. If you stay in Sri Lanka long enough, you are likely to meet people of every race under the sun, and to experience everything there is to experience on Earth. Perched on the shore by the Indian Ocean, Colombo, the commercial capital of Sri Lanka, now has a population of more than 2 million. Mostly Sinhalese, but also Tamils, Muslims, Burghers, as the descendants of the European settlers are known, and a smattering of foreign nationals. Colombo has been a settlement since the 8th century, when Arab traders used it as a cinnamon port. But it was first developed by the Portuguese, then the Dutch, and finally the British. St. Thomas's Church, where Ondaatjes once preached. Many Ondaatjes are buried here, but not my father, who was buried near my grandfather's estate in Kagol. A few of the family tombstones go back to the 17th century. In 1850, there were only 2 hotels in Sri Lanka dealing with the European community and the planters who came to Colombo. The Royal Hotel and the fort ahead of me, and the golf face behind me at the south end of the Esplanade. This is my favorite hotel in all the world. And this is the Esplanade. This is where it all happens. This is where people come out to see the setting sun, pony rides, children. Everybody comes out to enjoy the cool of the evening. Mystical happening. Cricket in Sri Lanka, one of the great colonial legacies. This was a game that was introduced to the colonies by England. The people were taught to play the game, how to behave when playing the game. And who can ever forget 1996, when Sri Lanka won the World Cup? Now, a lot of the colonial players are in fact better than the English players. Game of cricket, still a passion in the country. Based on information gathered from early Greek sailors, the mathematician and astronomer Ptolemy drew Sri Lanka as a great island many times its current size, beyond which was nothing, until you reached the frozen wastes of Antarctica. Ptolemy's maps, compiled about 150 AD, were based on exaggerated travelers' tales. But there is the geological possibility that Sri Lanka was the northern tip of a huge continent, which which in prehistoric times extended from Malaya to Madagascar until the Indian Ocean rose to take its place. Galle is a beautiful old world town approximately 75 miles south of Colombo. Much of Galle is actually contained within the fort. It had been built by the Portuguese in 1589 and enlarged by the Dutch in 1640. For centuries, Galle had been an important port for the spice trade between the Middle East and the Orient. But now, it's better known for its well-preserved ramparts, its spacious Dutch houses, and the colonial comfort of the new Oriental Hotel, which is really more like a grand old house full of antiques and quaint atmosphere. I'm standing here under the great breadfruit tree, brought here and planted by the Dutch in the pilot's bungalow. It was from this very spot in 1773 that Peter Philip Jurien Quint Ondaatje, my ancestor, sailed when he was 14 years old to Holland on a scholarship and never came back. I left when I was 12, but I did come back 43 years later. In 1948, shortly after my departure for school in England, Ceylon achieved its independence. The Tamils, though a minority concentrated in the north, had done well under British rule because of their hard work, intelligence, and fluency in English. With independence, the more populous Sinhalese began coveting Tamil jobs, resulting in an increase in ethnic tensions. Sri Lankan history has been dominated by intermittent wars between the Sinhalese and Tamils. Both groups originally came from India over 2,000 years ago. Each has oppressed the other at different periods under various kings. Their respective symbols are the lion and the tiger, though ironically neither cat exists on the island. Nissan de Silva is a patient and ever-observant driver. He needs to be on these long, busy island roads. Wildlife is very much respected in Sri Lanka. Even on busy roads, buses screech to a stop to allow a lowly star tortoise to amble slowly across. Life is precious. Off the edge of the Galle Road, a network of ropes exist on which toddy tappers walk from tree to tree, tapping nectar from pregnant coconut flowers. The toddy tappers climb nimbly up the trees, both tapping and collecting the nectar in clay pots. Eventually, this pungent fluid is stored in toddy barrels, fermented, and distilled into the millions of bottles of arak produced every year, Sri Lanka's most popular alcohol. A toddy tapper's knife, very sharp. Absolutely vital that it's sharp for toddy tapping. But the amazing thing about knives is that knives are very much a part of the culture of this country. For me, the culture of any people in the world are the knives. And I always look at the knives, the usefulness of knives, because they are, in fact, in the end, the very livelihood of the people, and to a great extent, the protection of their own, not just livelihood, but of their lives.
Madalali.
Is the Mudalali?
Iskibar.
Mudalali. Yeah. Mudalali? Is it Mudalali? Yeah. Yeah. This is the Mudalali. So all the fish that's fished all night, yeah, this guy buys it all, and of course he really makes the markup and he really controls the market. Fishing is vital to the economy of Sri Lanka. All around the southern coast of the island are fishing communities which rely on fish for their livelihood, as they have for hundreds of years. Stilt fishing further along the Gaul Road. Poised precariously on stilts, positions which are passed down from father to son. The stilt fishermen balance sometimes for hours on end for a meager catch. My father loved the songs and music of the 30s.
I'm waiting so patiently for my love to come back to me. She's all I've been dreaming of. She must have been sent to me to make me content to be happy to consent to love.
When I was a child, I noticed that he always wore a hat. I think it was as much for effect as for protection from the sun.
When she's with me, hand in hand, the bad times and the good, it's understood, it's love. I'm waiting so patiently.
Hamban Tota. At one time it used to be called Sampan Tota. But actually, many, many years ago, 300 years before Christ, it was called Dionisti. And you can see it at the southeast corner of this island in the 2nd century Ptolemy map. This is the place in the southeast coast of Sri Lanka where I feel most at home, the Hamban Tota rest house. And down below us in the bay is where we, as children, used to swim. And my father used to sit up here on the bank at the table drinking his gin and tonic, keeping an eye on us down below in the surf, just in case we went too far out, and there was the danger always of being swept away with the current. Meegiri. This is buffalo curd, one of the rarest culinary treats in Sri Lanka. You can only get it in the southwest. Buffalo curd and kitulpani. This is honey from the kittul palm. These two together are the most beautiful pudding you can ever have after rice and curry. During our journey around the island, my father and I visited Yala National Park. It was there I saw my first leopard, thus beginning a lifetime obsession with the elusive cat. The leopard is territorial and tends to be the least nocturnal of all the cats. It is an intelligent animal. When a shot is fired, for example, a leopard often appears, having learnt that a shot usually means a kill. And when hunting for monkeys, the leopard will often just claw or leap at the base of the tree, knowing that terror alone often makes the monkey miss its jump and fall to the ground. In the same way, the leopard will use its guttural roar to locate deer. The roar causes the deer to panic and bark and reveal its position.
Really dangerous elephant country around here.
Shanaka Wickramasuriya is a friend of the family and, like me,
Leopards.
a wildlife enthusiast.
Scrub, you know, it's not really jungle, although we call it jungle. Really good leopard country here, you know.
Yeah,
Fantastic.
talking about leopards, what's this obsession with leopards?
Well, in the early 1920s, an exceptionally dangerous and audacious leopard had killed and devoured at least 20 human beings in the region of Punani. This leopard kept the entire village, this tiny village, in absolute terror. Villages disappeared from their mud huts in the night. Coolies vanished as they worked on the railway lines. Bearers, just walking along the long, empty stretches of road to Batticaloa, were ambushed and eaten, and even children were stolen in broad daylight from the villages.
Who finally shot this Punani leopard?
No, Captain Shelton Agar. He was an Englishman, English tea planter, and he was sent up there. And actually, it's quite a fantastic story. You know, he was there three or four times before I actually got it. Finally, he was up in the tree, on a sort of blind, really.
Yala is really a group of 5 parks covering almost 400 square miles. It emerged from the reserve set up at the turn of the century by British sportsmen interested in controlled hunting. Its first warden was Henry Engelbrecht. Old H.H. Engelbrecht had come to Ceylon from South Africa as a prisoner of war in 1905. Because he wouldn't swear allegiance to the British Crown, he wasn't allowed to return home. And so he stayed on. School children on a day's outing to the park. Patnangala is one of my favorite places in Yala. A place to relax. A small fishing village. These are transient fishermen who move on from season to season, often burning their huts when they leave. I have always identified with predators. In business, as in the jungle, one is either predator or prey. And since I didn't want to end up as prey, I had to become a predator. That's what the English did when they controlled Ceylon, and that's what leopards do all the time. For a very long time, I've searched for a black leopard. It has been my talisman. A rare melanistic beast, a panther, that in medieval times was supposed to be friendly to all animals except the dragon. It is interesting that in different parts of the world, the black leopard is both feared and revered. For me, it has always been the symbol of the unattainable. Returning to Sri Lanka to come to terms with the ghost of my father, I promised myself that I would do something for the island that I loved so much. This bungalow is that gift, a symbol of my love and in some way a monument to my father. It is located in a part of the park that needed protecting and is available to those who share an interest in wildlife preservation. Though the man-eater of Punani is the only recorded case of a true man-eater, there are countless stories of others. Every year, for example, 45 days before the July full moon, Hindu pilgrims set out from Jaffna in the north to journey 300 miles to the shrine of Kathragama, some 25 miles from Yala. Many of them tire, get sick, and are left by the wayside. Their bodies, when found, appear mauled or mangled. It's unclear whether the leopards actually killed them or merely feasted on their corpses. But the pilgrims certainly believe they are in danger of being attacked while they are on their sacred journey. Pilgrims come to Kathragama every year to make vows. Some others come to perform penance for sins they have committed. The belief is that if you smash a coconut down on a sacred stone in front of the temple, and the coconut breaks in 2 equal halves, then your wish will be granted. When the British took over Ceylon from the Dutch, they began opening up the tea estates, which meant buying large tracts of land and making them available to the tea companies. What with the conflicting languages of the Portuguese and the Dutch, and the inadequate records in the villages, titles to land up in the hills or in the jungle weren't very clear. A lawyer with cunning and a grasp of local language was obviously useful. And my grandfather, Philip Francis Ondaatje was such a lawyer. He worked for the various tea agencies, and sometimes he acted on his own account, accumulating poorly titled property and selling it cleaned up. In the process, he became extremely wealthy, and I inherited my father's respect and awe of him. The most inveterate tea drinkers in the world are still the English, who originally imported over 90% of the island's tea. Now, however, nearly 60% of Sri Lanka's tea is exported to the Middle East. My father was the only son, the youngest of 3 children. For a long time he worked hard and well, helping with my grandfather's estates and leading the Planters Association in the Ratnapura district. He was a good planter, and I often accompanied him around the estates because it was easy to follow the twinkle in his eyes and the enthusiasm in his voice. In his darkest moods, his character became very strange. These times could be quite terrifying because we never understood what was happening or when it would end. Suddenly, everything simply went wrong. His control, his order, his love. Nothing worked anymore. As a family, we were in disarray. This was my father's house. This is where I last saw him before I was sent away to England. Almost everything is gone now, but I can still hear my father slamming his hand down on the bell, ringing for the servants. The bungalow was built by a senior planter who cut off the peak of the hill and put this lovely house in the middle of a garden with a view of the Pelmadulla Valley, or sometimes just an ocean of clouds. Mervyn Ondaatje thought he had to aim higher in order to be happy. He didn't have to. He shouldn't have tried. But the devil drives, and it drove him to his sad end.
I will probably never see this place again. But I will never forget it.
Driving in the valleys below my father's estate, gem pits litter the paddy fields, their timbers sticking up in the air like fingers. Some of the richest pits or mines in the world are found here. Sri Lanka is famous for its gems: blue sapphires, cat's eyes, rubies, alexandrites, garnets, singolites, aquamarines, and a whole host of other precious and semi-precious stones come from these gem pits and riverbeds. Adams Peak is only 50 miles from Colombo as the crow flies. It has been a place of pilgrimage for more than 1,000 years. All four major religions, Buddhism, Hinduism, Islam, and Christianity, claim it as a holy place. My father and I got there just before dawn. The shrine was packed with pilgrims. As the sun came up in the east, we all looked west to catch sight of the magical triangle created as the dawn light cast the mountain's shadow on the clouds below us. This natural phenomenon existed only for a moment. Then the shadow came quickly forward, completely engulfing us. To all Buddhists in Sri Lanka, Kandy is the home of the Temple of the Tooth. The Daladamaligava is a national palladium, for it houses the tooth relic of Buddha, an object of veneration to Buddhists all over the world. According to tradition, the tooth was rescued from the flames at the cremation of Gautama Buddha in India. It was brought to the island of the 4th century AD. Set in a valley halfway between the coast and the highest settlements, Kandy enjoys a particularly pleasant climate of warm days and cool nights. And though as congested as any Asian town, it has a slower and more relaxed atmosphere. Though the British conquered Ceylon from the Dutch in 1796, they did not actually capture Kandy because it was so far inland until 19 years later.
Although neither my father or my grandfather lived in Kandy, I always used to associate my family with it. I was born here in the nursing home in 1933. We used to visit Kandy regularly, and I used to hear about relations who had been prominent Kandians.
One of them, for example, had been involved in the construction of the famous Peridenia Gardens in the early 19th century. Peridenia Gardens had been conceived originally in 1371 as the Queen's Pleasure Garden, but was converted into the current botanical garden by the British in 1821. Now, almost 200 years later, people from all over the world enjoy the splendor of these gardens and their magnificent vistas. And then there is the infamous legend of the time my father became the only person in history to stop the Kandy Perahara. The Perahara is the victory and religious procession which goes back to the 2nd century. One year during the festival, according to family legend, in a crazed state after an alcoholic argument with my mother. My father threw himself on the ground immediately in front of the leading elephant. Richard Gabriel is the last surviving member of the famous 43 group that revolutionized the Sri Lankan art scene in the mid-20th century.
There was nothing about the countryside, nothing about the ordinary, you see, happening in the country.
He's been a friend of our family for over 50 years, and I bought my very first painting from him.
Before the group was started. So then...
A deeply religious Catholic, many of Gabriel's oil paintings and carvings are of biblical themes.
Who were more interested in the local, you see,
Right.
and the modern approach to art.
His everyday village scenes are reminiscent of Gauguin's later subjects. Scattered over Sri Lanka are enormous tanks.
Artificial lakes, developed for irrigation purposes in the dry regions. Even today, they are considered amazing engineering feats.
King Parakramabahu in the 12th century created this vast 6,000-acre tank, so large that they called it the Sea of Parakramabahu. The Sinhalese New Year's Day, which takes place in April in Sri Lanka. A serendipitous happening. The crested hawk eagle may be the legendary devil bird, an omen of death. In the Veda legend about the devil bird, a father murders his son. Sigiriya. Inscriptions on boulders confirm that Sigiriya was a retreat for Buddhist monks at a very early date. In the 5th century, it was chosen as the site for a royal seat by Kasyapa, a mad genius operating under a paranoid fear. The oldest son of King Dattasena, Kasyapa developed an obsession that he would lose the throne to his younger half-brother. As a result, he overthrew his father, imprisoned him, and demanded all his wealth. Dattasena led him to a view of water in his greatest irrigation system. There, the old king said, raising water in his cupped hands, "This is all the treasure I possess." Outraged, Kasyapa ordered his father's death, and the old man was walled alive within a tomb. Fear, arrogance, and a delusion of divinity then drove Kasyapa to construct his palace atop the dramatic rock at Sigiriya. It took 7 years to build, and he stayed there 11 years, secure within his own impregnability. About halfway to the summit of the Sigiriya rock is the mirror wall, which encloses the gallery leading to the final terrace. Its glistening surface, a durable glaze created with lime, egg white, and wild honey, has withstood the harsh tropical climate for 15 centuries. Its graffiti record visitors' reactions to the frescoes, the beautiful women on the rock face above. Only 21 of the more than 500 frescoes survive today. But the sensual beauty of the maidens is still vivid. Kasyappa's impregnability was shattered when he was lured out to engage his brother's army on the plains below. At the height of battle, his elephant turned away from a hidden swamp. His army mistook the move as a sign of retreat, leaving Kasyappa alone and defenseless. Flamboyant to the last, he drew his dagger, cut his own throat, raised the blade high in the air, and returned it to its sheath before falling dead.
So all these things were sort of attractions. And you wouldn't believe this. The house in which I was born, and which was built in 1904 by my father's father, was called Sihagiri.
No, really?
Lester James Pearce is the Dean of Filmmaking in Sri Lanka. His achievements and awards are legion.
There must be some mystical element in my being drawn to the
In
story.
1973, Dr. Pearce embarked on his most ambitious project, The God King, about the mad 5th century ruler, Kasyappa.
The conflict between fathers and sons is something recurring in most of my films which are based on family.
And in fact, right through the island's history and most history, in fact.
The basic story is really a story about a family, but on a level so high that you have to accept certain of the psychological complexes that they had, which were quite natural probably at that time.
The more I think of it, the more it seems the entire history of this island is a variation on the theme of fathers and sons. In the ancient Vedda legend of the devil bird, the father murders his son. In the story of Vijaya, the father banished his son, who came to Sri Lanka 500 years before Christ and founded a kingdom. And didn't Kasyappa cause the death of his father before coming here to see Giriya? The lesson seems clear, like a universal law of nature. If you don't learn to deal with the ghost of your father, it'll never let you be your own man.
People come and people go. Dynasties, economies, empires come and go in cycles, long or short. The history of this island is a history of conflicts. But whatever its current crisis, the spirit of Sri Lanka will always survive.